Hello folks, today's film review is Richard Marquand's 1983 conclusion to the epic Star Wars saga, Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi is a good film, but it's not a great film. It is my feeling that this is the weakest of the three original Star Wars films. That is not to say it's a bad movie. This is a very good movie, but it is not quite as good as Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. What I think is lacking in this particular part of the saga is strong characters. Now, many of the characters are indeed strong, such as the Emperor and Vader, and even Luke to a certain degree. But I feel that characters like Han Solo get shortchanged. Han Solo isn't being Han Solo in Return of the Jedi. Now, I don't mean to criticize George Lucas, but his involvement with this film was on a much bigger scale than it had been with The Empire Strikes Back. In The Empire Strikes Back, Irvin Kershner basically directed the film without the assistance of George Lucas, and I think it led to a better product. Return of the Jedi, while directed by Richard Marquand, was basically helmed by George Lucas himself. He had a much bigger involvement, even though he was the executive producer. Much of what he came up with overrode what Richard Marquand came up with. Now, Return of the Jedi has some wonderful moments of creatures and effects and all sorts of amazing things going on. I find one of the stronger parts of the film to be the beginning with the rescue of Han Solo from Jabba's palace. Now, I'm a firm believer that a film should speak for itself. I do not believe it is a good idea to go back and upgrade films with CGI such as the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition did. I believe a film should speak for itself and remain as it was in the beginning. Now, I do believe that if there are missing scenes, such as in films like Lawrence of Arabia, High Noon, and others, I believe those scenes should be restored if they were shot originally. But I don't believe that it's a good idea to go back and mess with the special effects in a film. Those should speak for themselves. And I find that what happened to the Star Wars trilogy with the special edition didn't really improve the film, except maybe for the very ending of Return of the Jedi, when the quite awful Ewok song was replaced with some better music. Now, I don't mean to be too much of a George Lucas basher, but I think Return of the Jedi is where things started to go bad for Star Wars. The Ewoks, I feel, are necessary to the story. They're not superfluous, but I feel that they are a bit of too much of an attempt to add too much cuteness, and let's do this in a movie just because we can. That's a problem. I will speak about that more when we come to the prequel trilogies, or the prequel trilogy films, of adding things that don't need to be there. Now, the Ewoks are there for a reason. They play a very important role in this story. However, I do feel that they were overly cute and an attempt to add humor that didn't really pay off to a film. Now, the things such as the Battle of Endor is well executed and well done. Things such as the final confrontation between Luke and Vader with the Emperor trying to guide Luke down the dark path is some of the things that make this film absolutely wonderful. But I do feel that one of the stronger elements of the film is the beginning with the rescue of Han Solo from Jabba's palace. That is a wonderful sequence full of amazing creature effects. I'm a firm believer that CGI is not the answer to bringing such memorable things to the screen. Jabba the Hutt is in case you didn't know, a very large puppet, perhaps the largest ever built. But you do not doubt his existence for a moment. Now, if the character were made of CGI, there is much room to doubt their existence, except perhaps in the case of Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies. But this is a wonderful sequence in Jabba's palace with amazing creatures, very reminiscent of the cantina scene in Star Wars, which brought so much imagination and really got people interested in the possibilities of this Star Wars universe. And that's one of the stronger scenes. Unfortunately, the beginning part of Return of the Jedi doesn't really play very much into what happens later. So what you end up with is a very disjointed plot. But I believe that this film is a good film, not a great film, but it still maintains the magic that made the Star Wars universe what it is. I believe this film will be well remembered, along with the other three. I feel that the prequels will not be as well remembered, but I'll come to that later in my review of them. I also feel that the script in Return of the Jedi is quite lacking. As I mentioned before, Han Solo is not being Han Solo. If you look at the other two films, he is being himself. His dialogue is written just perfectly, and Harrison Ford's performance brings so much to it. But I feel that the performances are quite lacking in Return of the Jedi, except perhaps for Vader and the Emperor. Of course, Yoda's touching death scene. Jabba is a wonderful actor, and I really give credit to the imagination of the men who created him, because he is a living, breathing character, just like Yoda was in Empire Strikes Back. So that's my review of Return of the Jedi. Join me next time when I begin my reviews of the Star Wars prequel trilogy, starting with The Phantom Menace. Thank you. Bye-bye.